Hello, everybody. It's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and welcome to my weekly episode. It is episode number 272 for August the 6th, 2024. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Those of us here in Canada, most of us had a long weekend, and that's always nice. Although, when you're retired, and you've heard me say this before, every weekend is a long weekend. So, I am very proud of myself because I got a lot of things done. So let's take a look at these. So I got the Spirit of Christmas Hope, my Christmas quilt, which is based on a panel, all done. It's all quilted now. You've seen the top of this before, but now it's all quilted and it's bound and it's folded up and sitting and waiting for Christmas to put it out. I don't know about you, but I have a ton of Christmas quilts. Every year I end up making a bunch, and I don't give them to anybody because nobody in my family wants them. Excuse me. And, a lot of charities too, I have found out, do not want seasonal quilts. And I get the point of that. They want quilts that people will feel comfortable using all year round, that kind of thing. I've given a couple of quilts to the neighbors next door. Maybe I'll see if they want maybe this one. They might like this one. I don't know. We'll see for Christmas. But anyways, it's done. It was a panel, as I said, and it had templates to make those trees. I didn't really realize that when I bought it. Um, you know, that's a note to self here, and maybe to other people. You see a pattern and you really like it, and you don't think about it. You're probably pulled in by the colors. I am. And especially when it comes as a kit as well. And then you get it home and you open up the instructions, the pattern, and you discover there are things in it that you don't want to do. Like, I shy away from any quilts that need templates or very specific rulers. I know there's ways to get around that kind of thing, but when you buy it as a kit, in my mind anyways, little frog in my throat, sorry about that. In my mind anyways, when I buy especially a kit, I'm figuring, hey, this is going to be fast. Well, that's not true. No, definitely not true, but that's the way my mind works. So I usually get trapped. However, this was not difficult to put together. The templates were fairly straightforward. And in fact, you probably could have used like a triangular ruler or something to make these trees. They were paper templates, and you had to stick them together. And I always copy them first, and because I don't want to destroy the originals, I want to keep those intact with the pattern. And you put them together, and that's a bit of a pain in the butt. It really is. I know some people take them off to a printer, like I don't know, UPS stores, I think, do it, Staples here in Canada, whatever, Office Depot, and get them printed out. But that's an added expense too, and already you've probably spent a lot of money on the kit. But anyways, I did it. It's done. I think it looks pretty cool. It's not huge. It's not a bad size either. It makes a nice wall hanging. So the next project that I finished up was this one. Now, this is one that I created myself. They're four really large blocks. They make a maple leaf. But the problem I had with this quilt after I got it all done was I didn't really think about it until I saw it in its entirety, and that I put all the stems of the maple leaves towards the center, as you can see here. So you got a giant X. And where does your eye go? It goes immediately to the center of that quilt, and it goes to the X. And then you might look beyond that. And I don't know if you necessarily pick up that these are four maple leaves. When you look away from the X, it looks more like a giant multi-pointed star, which is okay. That's okay too. So there's a lot going on in this design of this particular quilt. If I did it over again, I would probably do the maple leaves so that the stems are, I might rotate everything 45 degrees to the right so that the stems are going off to the side around like that. I don't know. But anyways, somebody did suggest to me, and I thought about this, but I thought about it too late. I thought about it after I got it all quilted, that I could applicate something in the center of this. And I could, I could have done like an embroidered maple leaf or something like that and stitched it on here. But I'm not going to bother with it now. It's already layered, it's all bound, it is finished, and leave it. And you know something? Even though when I first looked at it, I didn't really like it, it's kind of growing on me now. It was just made up of scraps, basically. That's all there was to it. It was a fast quilt to put together. Um, and it's my own, sort of my own design. It's based on a pattern for making those large maple leaves, and I just made 4 of them. So yeah, so it's done. And it's hard to see the quilting because the background fabric that I used is very, very busy, but it's just they're actually maple leaves amongst swirls. And in this picture, they show up in real life a little bit better. And again, I have this thing. It's an unconscious thing that I do every time, and I know I do it, and I still do it. When I go to quilt a quilt, I tend to use a thread that's going to blend into the quilt itself so that you don't really see the quilting. And, I don't know, I should be bolder on some things. Now, sometimes you want it to blend in, but it always does that. And my color choices for the backing of a quilt, and I didn't take a picture of this one, but when I'm quilting it, what I put in my bobbin, same thing, blends right into the background. So sometimes you don't even realize until you start to feel it or get up real close and personal with it that it's actually been quilted. I got to work on that. This one I call Stephanie's. Oh, by the way, the other one I did name, I don't know if I mentioned it, Canada Crossroads, because why not? This one is the block was designed by Stephanie of Stephanie Stitches. I fell in love with the block and I had so much fun making a couple of them. I decided to make a bunch of them and put it all together as a quilt. And that's what I've done here. So I call this one Stephanie's Ninja Stars because the blocks remind me of those things you see in ninja movies that they throw at each other and chop off people's heads. Yeah, there's an image for you to go with the quilt. But anyways, it's all quilted. You can see the quilting in this one a little bit better. It was a very simple design, just little curly cues all across the quilt. And yeah, I really like this quilt. I think it turned out nice. The stars are pretty. There is rhyme and reason to the way I laid out the stars. If you take a look at it, there is the stars that have sort of the white specks on the dark background go across from the top right to the bottom left diagonally. And then on the other diagonal, there's green stars. And then you have 2 yellow and 2 blue and 2 red. And there's 2 shades of blue, actually. The picture doesn't pick it up. Yeah, so I did think about how I'd laid it out. And I kind of like the secondary pattern that's formed by this block as well. As you can see basically in the intersection points of the sashing, you have the little squares there too. So a really nicely designed block by Stephanie. Fun to make, relatively fast to make too. And it went together really well. And so in honor of Stephanie, I call it Stephanie's Ninja Stars. Okay, and the last project I just got finished yesterday. I started this on the weekend. It's just a simple Christmas table runner. And there's a little story behind this in terms of I was an idiot. Okay, so I get the whole thing done, the top, and I decide, hey, I'm going to throw it on the embroidery machine and do some quilting per se. I picked this snowflake little motif block, and my idea was that within each one of these sections, the 2 trees and the star, I would drop this in. Well, I layered it all up. I had my backing fabric. I had my batting. I use battleizer and table runners because it lays flatter. And the top. I hooped it all up. I've done this kind of thing before. And you can do it. Now, remember, I tell you, you cannot quilt a quilt, in my opinion, on an embroidery machine. That's sort of my mantra, or whatever you want to call it. I bring it up all the time, like a broken record. And but on a small piece. And I have said this, you probably could do it on a small piece. This is a small piece. So I picked this design and I really didn't look at it that carefully, but it is very, very tiny stitches. And what was happening was, as I got started with this, the thread was being pulled, the tension was being pulled down a little further through the layers than I liked, which made it very tight. And what was happening was I was creating a bird's nest on the back and it was getting caught. And I knew right then and there, I am not going to fight with this. This is a simple project. It is not worth my time and effort to fight with this. So I took it off the embroidery machine and I didn't make that, hadn't gone very far, only maybe a couple of inches or so. And I started to pull out the stitches. Well, no, that was not going to be easy because the stitches have been pulled so tight and were so small. I could not get a seam ripper underneath them to rip them up without ripping the the table runner top. That's what I'm trying to say. And yes, indeed, I managed to rip it. Well, I managed to rip it though in one of the last blocks, the tree trunk block, and so I just cut it away, took that block off, opened up the borders, and took off the end border, and rebuilt the block and put it all back together again. That wasn't that difficult to do. Luckily, it was in a spot that I could get to fairly easily. So then I put just the top itself, no layers, onto the embroidery machine and did the embroidery that you see here. And then I took it off, layered it all, and I did some stitch in the ditch around around the trees and the star and in the border area, just to hold all the layers together, and trimmed it up, put a binding on it, and it looks fine. It looks good, actually. I think it looks good. My embroidery, this is, I'm going to let you in on an exclusive here. If you really study the embroidery very carefully, you will notice that the tree on one end, where the embroidery is not exactly duplicated in the other end because I got them not quite spaced properly in the hoop. And that's another problem if you're going to try to do any kind of quilting on a small piece in your embroidery machine. Lining things up, if you want them to be symmetrical, it can be a tricky thing. It can be done. I didn't do it. But anyways, who cares? It's a table runner. Probably the average person wouldn't even notice that. Because do you go to somebody's house and study their table runners? Seriously? I don't. So yeah, it's fine. So it will be in my pile. I don't know. I have lots of Christmas table runners I put out every year at Christmas as well. So again, may go in the pile of potential gifts. I have a lot of potential gifts. I have no one to give them to. Yeah, that's sad, isn't it? Yeah, it is. But anyways, so that's what I've been up to. I'm very proud of the fact that I only have, let me switch over here. I only have one more quilt to get onto Lucy and quilt it today. Yesterday, I had another fairly large quilt. It's the Underground Railroad one. And I decided for that one that I was going to do a custom quilting. I was going to put a design in each separate block because, it's made up of, as you know, you've seen the top, and Stephanie's been doing the Underground Railway too, quilt, and it's made up of all different blocks. It's like it's a sampler. So I thought I would try my hand at custom quilting. I've never done it before. I have done it on some practice pieces, just, blank sandwiches, no problem. So I did that. I got it on Lucy on last Friday, and I worked on it on Sunday. And while I was working on Sunday, something strange was happening. When I get to the bottom of a block, my stitches would skip. or they'd make a long stitch and then carry on. I didn't like that, so I ripped them out, tried again, and I was getting it again. And this was happening frequently, like all the time. It seemed to be when it was going in the right-left direction at the bottom of a piece, I'd get these long stitches. And then it actually started doing it in another spot as well. So I thought, okay, this isn't right. Something's wrong with Lucy. So I played around with this, that, and the other thing. Still couldn't figure out the problem. Did an internet research thing. And, you know, there's tons of information on the internet, but not the information you want when you need it. And I didn't know what to call it. I was going, you know, long stitches on your long arm. Oh, and there's people that say, oh, this is exactly the problem. Your thread tension is way off. You need to change your thread. You need to change your needle. You need to clean your machine. There's all kinds of suggestions, and they all make it sound like this is exactly what your problem is, and it's not. So I did some more research, and I came to the conclusion that I had a bad link between my machine, the cable that links into the encoder. The encoder is the computer in the machine, basically, that tells it when you're using, this is computerized quilting, okay? That talks to the computer and makes the machine do what the computer wants it to do. Now, the way APQS has designed these machines, and this is a flaw in their design, their cables run into the side of the head of the machine, the sewing part itself, and those cables have a lot of strain on them because your head is going forward, backwards, left to right, right to left all the time. And these cables are very short, and there's tension on them because there's not enough play in them. So, you know, this back and forth motion tends to snap the wires that are inside it. Now, I inspected this and looked at it, readjusted it so there'd be less tension on it, but I was pretty sure that what I couldn't see what inside the plug is that there's probably a wire that is broken, loose, short-circuiting, whatever, and this is what's causing the problem. That's what I concluded after several hours of research on the internet. So I sent an email off to my APQS dealer, and that is Tracy. And, well, I made a little video, which I'm going to insert here. Actually, I think I will insert it here right now because this explains what I'm trying to explain to you in a little bit clearer terms with some visuals as well. So I'm going to put that in here right now.
So I thought I should show you something that's been giving me a problem for 2 days while I try to do custom quilting for basically the first time on this big quilt I have here. This one you might recognize. This is the Underground Railroad quilt. And I decided I wanted to custom quilt in each of the blocks and in the sashing. And when I first got started, it was working fine and not giving me any problems. Then, suddenly, at the bottom of some of these stitches, I was getting a long stitch. And that really bothered me. So I pulled the stitches out, which is a pain in the butt, and I redid it, and I got the same thing. And it seemed to be a hit and miss kind of thing. I thought maybe I didn't have my safe zone. That's the area that the machine can quilt in, not set up properly. I did that. I set up the parameters for the block size. It wasn't that. I thought my quilt wasn't up far enough on the rack, so I physically moved the quilt up a bit further. That seemed to fix a problem too, but then it came back again. So this has been becoming very annoying. So I did a little research and I came across something, and I just figured this isn't the problem, but they said it might be a problem with the encoder. Well, these are the encoders on the side here, and you see these little cables that go into these holes, especially this one down here that says carriage encoder. I thought, well, this one always seems to get a little loose. It's actually the plastic housing that's getting loose, and they sent me at one point in time these little clips to stop that from moving around. They don't really do anything. They don't really stop it from moving around. But I thought, well, what the heck? I'll unplug it and plug it back in. And I did that, and looked at it, and everything seemed to be fine. And I went ahead and set up my custom block. And lo and behold, no problem with this longer stitch. I've just stitched out about 3 very small areas on this quilt, the sashing down here, and those came out fine. The thing I'm talking about is right here. This is what I was getting before. If you can see, it's very awkward, I know. Okay, see this curly Q, and you see down here? I'm actually standing at the back of the machine. So this is actually the bottom, not the top of the curly Q. But see that long stitch? Yeah, that's what I was getting. But once I re-plugged in the encoder, I'm not having that problem anymore. So maybe that was the whole problem. I was thinking it was what I had done to set this up. Because as I said, I haven't really done custom quilting before. I've done some practice on just a blank sandwich. But yeah, so I'm hoping this was all there was to it, the problem. And I'll have to watch for that to make sure that encoder is properly seated. It felt like it was, but obviously it wasn't. At least I think that's what the obvious problem is. So I thought I'd share this with you because it's something that I have learned, and maybe it'll help somebody else down the road, because it is very difficult to find good, clear, step-by-step instructions for the quilt path on an APQS machine. So when I find something and I discover a solution to a problem, I'm just going to put them in my vlogs for other people as well, and hope it will help them out if they have a similar problem. So I thought that I had solved the problem with Lucy, but I did not. It went back to doing what it was doing before. I spent a lot of time on the internet researching it, and I came to the conclusion, right or wrong, that the problem was this cable right here, that somehow, because of the way it's hooked in here, it gets stretched back and forth. Now I have put a new cable on this, and once I got the new cable on and I've adjusted how it pulls back and forth so it doesn't have as much strain on it, and it's been working fine, no problem. So that was the problem. It was the cable to the encoder. But in the meantime, I had sent off a note to Tracy at Whirls N Swirls. She's my APQS dealer, and she is second to none. She is a wonderful, absolutely a wonderful dealer. If you're in my area and you're looking for a long arm, I strongly suggest that you check out Whirls N Swirls and ask for Tracy Russell, because she is a goddess. I can tell you that for sure. I sent her an email, and her store isn't open until Tuesday, and that's fine. I was going to wait, but I described in detail the problem I was having. She got back to me within an hour from her home and said she was going out for a bike ride. She's a motorcycle mama, and she would stop by and drop me off a cable from the machine she had at home to see if that was the problem. But she said she was pretty sure that was the problem. So she did. She came over, she dropped off the cable, I plugged it in, and everything is fine. Now, where do you get customer service like that? It's Sunday at the time I'm recording this. I did not expect her to go way out of her way to bring me a cable. I was going to go in and talk to her about the problem on Tuesday at the shop during normal business hours. That's just how great she is. And I appreciate it so much, because this bugger of a quilt that I'm trying to get done here, I can now probably finish it up, I hope maybe today, this afternoon. But nevertheless, Tracy is wonderful. I appreciate it. I'm going to send her an email now to let her know all is well, and talk about how I can order a couple of these cables as well, because I want to have one in spare. And of course, I need to return this one that belongs to her. So yeah, I am happy, and I have not been happy all day. This made me happy, and it's all because of Tracy, and she goes to the sky and back for you. So as I said, that's Whirls N Swirls. She has a YouTube channel. She has a website. Check it out. Whirls, W-H-I-R-L-S, the letter N, Swirls, S-W-I-R-L-S. And her name is Tracy Russell. And as I said, she is a goddess.
So all I can say is thank goodness I have Tracy. She's absolutely wonderful, as you've already heard. And I now have, as of yesterday, Tracy sent me a text message telling me that I could get these cables. She can get them, but she'd ordered them from APQS or whatever. But you know, you don't know when they're going to come in. But she says you don't need them from APQS. She told me exactly what to buy at a computer store or at, uh, like Best Buy, something like that. So I went online. I found the cable. They're not expensive, $15. Um, I sent her a picture by text just to make sure it was the right one. She says, "Yep, that's the one." She had replaced all her cables in her machine with those ones. And so I have them on order. They should be coming this week. And she said, "Don't worry about getting the other cable. Use it until you get to your new ones." And because she's not using that cable right now. And, that's just, how do you describe customer service like that? As I said in the little video clip, she is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. And I hope if you live in this area, if you live here in Southern Ontario and you're looking for a long arm, do check out Whirls and Swirls, Tracy's business in Oshawa. You will not be disappointed at all. She is excellent, absolutely excellent. Okay, so yeah, that means I'm all caught up on my projects right now. All right, let's move on to something else. Sewing with Stephanie and Stephen this week, as usual, on Wednesday, starting at 9 a.m. Links in the show notes. Now, Stephanie will not be with us on Wednesday. It's just going to be me. Yeah, so I could be all by myself because, Stephanie's the draw. It's not me. But anyway, Stephanie's off to a retreat in Texas at Stitch in Heaven. She's going to be doing some stuff with Rob Appel there. And everybody knows who Rob Appel is, I'm sure. And I think she's going to have a wonderful time. I'm very envious of her that she's able to do this, go there. I mean, it would be fun to do it as well, but a flight from here to Texas is astronomical. And, plus you pay for everything else that goes along with the retreat, accommodation, food, the retreat fees and that. It just makes it really not something I can afford to do. But I know she's going to have a really great time. So it's just me on Wednesday. All are welcome. If you've never been to one of our sew days that we have every Wednesday, it's casual, it's fun, it's private, it's on Zoom, it is not recorded, it is not a YouTube live, and everybody there is extremely friendly, helpful, supportive, and I've had several people who are now regulars coming to the sew day that were afraid before to come. They were shy, and now they go like, why? There was nothing to be afraid of. So come. It's always a good time. And at least I do, and I think a lot of other people do, really get caught up on a lot of our projects as well. And we get enabled a lot. Because people show us things, or at least they show me things, and I want that. And I buy it. Yeah. So for me, sew day's not cheap, usually. But, you'll have a good time. Now, speaking of Stephanie, I have some wonderful news to share with you, and I know that Stephanie would be a little embarrassed to probably share this with you herself, but I'm going to toot Stephanie's horn because she's a friend, and even more so than a friend, she is a brilliant quilter, and she just won a whole bunch of awards at I'm looking at the email she sent me, the Erie County Quilt Show. And this is what she won. She said she got a first on her Christmas quilt. She got a second on the Go Coastal quilt. That's an Art East quilt. She got first on the cone flower wall hanging. I'm not sure what the cone flower wall hanging was. I don't remember that one. She got a first and best in class on the lemon table runner. I remember that one. That was gorgeous. And a first and best in class on the quilted duffel bag she made as well. My God, girl, you're going to need a separate room to house your ribbons. But congratulations. And it's well deserved because Stephanie is a very fine quilter, and I only aspire to be half as good as Stephanie because she is great. In fact, she said to me, "When are you entering a show?" No time soon. No, my quilts are not show worthy. Although, well, there is another thing too about entering shows here. There aren't any. The United States seems to have shows every other week that people can enter. Here in Canada, in Ontario, no. The only shows we really have are guild shows, and they're far and few between. And so there's no real opportunity to enter a quilt into anything. Of course, once a year we have the Canadian Quilters Show, but that's in different parts of the country. Now this year it's going to be in Mississauga, but I am not at a level where I could even compete. They wouldn't even look at my quilts and say, yeah, you can put it in the show, kind of a thing. I mean, because the work that's there is just incredible. Those people are masters with it. Now, I am, though, having said all of that, okay, I am thinking we have a spring fair in a little town just north of us. Actually, it's kind of part of the Oshawa Whitby, where I live, area. And they have in the first weekend of June every year, they have a fair. And I didn't know this until this year, but I guess you can enter a quilt. They have competition. So I may look into that come, next year, and I might consider it. I might consider it. I probably haven't got a chance in hell of winning anything, but it's the experience, I suppose, of entering a quilt in that. At least I can say that I did once. So I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, back to Stephanie. Her stuff is beautiful. Do check out her channel if you're new around here and have never heard of Stephanie, and I don't know how you couldn't have, but I have a link to Stephanie, her YouTube channel, Stephanie Stitches, in the show notes below. And her patterns are wonderful. I have made several of her patterns, like Stephanie's Ninja Star, and I have some other ones that I have purchased from her Etsy store and that I'm dying to make. She's got a Halloween one that I think would look really cool in my Halloween gnome fabric. So that might be my next project, I'm thinking, with that. But anyways, yeah, congratulations, Stephanie. Well deserved. Okay, so we had a pop-up sew day on Saturday. It was fun. I think at the height of it, we had maybe around 30 people. That's more than I expected because, it was a long weekend here in Canada, and it was also, well, the weather wasn't that great. It was rainy, a little rainy, which is perfect for quilting. But it was also a lot of people were having power outages as well that day in their area. So, yeah, that was the thing. But anyways, those of us that were there, I think everybody had a good time. And when will the next pop-up sew day be? Don't know. But I think I'll probably have another one before the month ends, before we're out of August. I just haven't figured out when that's going to be yet. So stay tuned here to find out when that will be. Okay, so subscribers quilt of the week. This comes from Sherry Jones. Now, Sherry Jones sent me 5 quilts because, and nice of her to do so, but a little overwhelming. And I just want to say off the bat, I appreciate that she sent those because she sent 5 because she said, do with them what you will. She says, I know you were asking for more quilts because you were getting low. Yes, that's true. And I have Sherry's quilts, and as time goes on, I'm not going to show them all at once. I'm spreading them out. And so over the next few months, you may see another one of Sherry's beautiful creations pop up here. But in the meantime, this is one of the 5 that she sent to me. And yeah, it's gorgeous. This week's quilt from a subscriber comes from Sherry Jones. And Sherry heard my call that I needed some quilts to show, so she sent me not just one, she sent me 5. So I'm only going to share one of her creations with you today, but as the weeks go on, I will show you some more of hers as well. But this one definitely is an eye catcher, and although we're past the beginning of July, which is, July the 4th for the Americans and July the 1st for Canadians, our big celebrations, this one is definitely a July the 4th kind of wall hanging quilt. And this is what she had to say about this. A patriotic wall hanging with a paper pieced eagle. Eagle pattern purchased from Etsy, currently hanging in the neighborhood community center, which is really nice that she's got sort of a, I don't know if it's a permanent residence for this, but I think it would be really nice to have a quilt in a spot where many people can enjoy it. And this is definitely a wall quilt to be enjoyed. I love the paper pieced eagle. I don't do paper piecing, as you know, because it drives me mental. But I think this is really cool. And I really like the white and red stripes and the way that they have sort of a wavy effect to them, which would suggest sort of a flag in the background. And of course, the stars that are also on the American flag as well. So I think this is a really nice piece. It's very eye-catching, very patriotic for the Americans as well, and very nice that it's up for public display as well. So thank you, Sherry, for sharing your wonderful creation with us. So that takes me to the YouTube channel of the week. Now, this is about a tool that you probably know about. I knew about it. I bought one some time ago, like several years ago. And it's one of those rulers that, you buy, you think it's a good idea at a time, and you either use it once or you never use it, and you throw it in a drawer somewhere and forget all about it. At least that's what I did with this one. And I saw this video. I think it was on the, what'd she go by? The Opinionated Quilter. Love her channel. I just love that lady. She's no holds barred. She says it like it is. And anyways, I'm digressing. This is the ruler called the 6-inch Log Cabin Trim Tool by Creative Grids. And I don't know about you, but when I've done log cabin blocks, mine go a little wonky. So I experimented with this tool after I saw the video. And, well, here's how you use the Creative Grids 6-inch log cabin trim tool. Say that fast 5 times. This week's YouTube video clip comes from the Creative Grids people who make all wonderful rulers. I'm sure you have some of those rulers. I love their rulers, and I have quite a collection of them. So many, in fact, I didn't realize I had this particular tool. I have been thinking lately of possibly doing another log cabin quilt. Now, I've done a couple in the past, and I've always struggled with getting the blocks kind of squared up with those strips. They always seem to stretch on me a little bit when I'm pressing them, or my seam allowance has been out, that kind of thing. And then, for some reason, well, I think it was on the Opinionated Quilter, I saw her reviewing this particular ruler when she was talking about making log cabin blocks. And I said to myself, I think you have that ruler. So I went into my drawer of rulers, and I have many, many rulers, dug through it, and sure enough, I had this particular 6-inch log cabin trim tool ruler, which I have never, ever used. So I pulled it out and watched this video, learned how to use it, and away I went. Now, I haven't actually made the log cabin quilt yet. I just made a couple of sample blocks just to get the feel for the ruler. But this does make trimming up your log cabin blocks very, very easy and keeps everything very nicely in shape, if you understand what I mean by that, because that was the problem I was having. So down the road, I intend to use this ruler. But if you've never heard of this ruler, and it's been around for a long time, and there are different sizes of it as well, then you're going to want to check out this little short video clip from Creative Grids and see just how great this little ruler is if you're going to be making a log cabin quilt. So I've been wanting to do another log cabin quilt. I've done several over time, but I'm seeing a lot of pictures where they can get very, very elegant looking in the way you lay them out and the colors that you pick and that kind of thing. So maybe down the road, but now that I have this tool, maybe I will make another log cabin quilt. Okay, but as far as future projects go, one of the things that Stephanie gave me while we were down visiting her a couple of weeks ago was a book by Doug Leko. Now, that name may be familiar to you from Stephanie's and my channels because we did a little sew along with one of the blocks from another one of his books, Table-tastic #2, Book of Table Runners. And we made the Churchill block, and I really loved the Churchill block. In fact, I loved it so much that I made it into a quilt, not a table runner, and I showed that back several weeks ago. But there were some problems with that block in the instructions, and it kind of put me off of trying any of the other ones in his book. But Stephanie gave me this book that she had called the Chatsworth, and it is a whole quilt, and it looks really interesting, so I think I will give it a try, and hopefully I won't have the same problems as I had with the Churchill block. They weren't major problems, but it was a little annoying thing. But anyways, here's what I'm talking about. This week's future project is one called Chatsworth by Doug Leko of Antler Quilt Designs. And I'm sure you're familiar with Doug Leko. In fact, we did a sew along, Stephanie of Stephanie Stitches and myself, with a table or with a couple of blocks called the Churchill block that I made into a quilt. And I did have some problems with that. I'll be very honest about it. But Stephanie gave me, when I visited her as a gift, this book, as you see going across the screen here. And let me just go over to this one. This book by Doug Leko, and it's for this quilt called the Chatsworth, and I really like the look of that quilt. She also gave me the foundation paper pieces for the finish for making the different braided flying geese as well, and a special ruler. So I have this all together, and I just need to figure out what fabrics I'm going to use, and then I will make this. This is on my project list that I showed you last week for things that I want to do fairly soon. You can purchase this book at Antler Quilt Designs. I'll have the link in the show notes below for this. And it does say on the book, it says it's a block of the month, bonus table runner and topper and quilt inside. So there's more than just a quilt here, but they all use this same design. So I'm kind of looking forward to giving this a try, and I hope I won't have as many problems with this as I did with the Churchill block from one of his other books. So yeah, look for this in the future, and yeah, I'm excited. Now, I have not done an interview in quite some time, but I came across, by recommendation from one of my subscribers, a gentleman that I am going to interview next Monday. So hopefully next week I will have up another interview with Cole Whitaker, and he is an art quilter, and his stuff will blow you out of the water. Now, if you want to check him out in advance of the interview, you can just do a search for Cole Whitaker on YouTube, and you'll find his videos, and you will be astounded. And he does a lot of paper piecing. So if you're into foundation paper piecing, you're going to love that channel. But anyways, there'll be more about him next week once I have conducted my interview with him. I'm really looking forward to talking to him about his designs. Okay, the online quilt store this week is one that I physically visited when I was in Berlin, Ohio a couple of weeks ago. It's called the Plaid Sheep Company. It was surprisingly wonderful because they focus a lot on wool, and and especially on for people who do wool applique and hand embroidery on wool and that kind of thing. But they definitely had fabrics as well, and I showed you some of the things that I bought there. I bought a kit there. I bought a pattern. Actually, timber timber trees, which is the Christmas table runner I just showed you. I bought that pattern at the Plaid Sheep Company. So I thought I would check out, because they're not a Canadian company. And you know, I usually review Canadian online companies, but I'm making an exception here because I had been to their store, so I want to check out their website as well. So here's my review of that. This week's online quilt store is another one that I visited when I was in Berlin, Ohio, and yes, it is a USA quilt store, and you know that I don't usually review those, but because I'd actually been to this store, I wanted to compare it to its online presence, its website. So it is called Plaid Sheep Company, and as I said back when I talked about this store when we actually went to it, it does have a lot of wool uh, products in there. So those of you that are into Sue Spargo or other hand embroidery type designers, you'll love the store just for that. But it does definitely have a lot of fabric as well. And I did buy a fair amount of things from them when I was in the actual store. So let's take a look at what they have to offer on their website. This is their front page. And upcoming events, of course, the Ohio Shop Hop at the time of recording this is about to begin. And then they show some pre-order Shop Hop fabric. Okay, so this is fabric. And we did see a display that they had blocked off that said people couldn't buy these fabrics until the Shop Hop started. So that's interesting that they're actually offering particular fabrics for this Shop Hop. So this Shop Hop is a really major thing. I gather it's like about 84 shops across Ohio. So yeah, now you can get a look here at some of their embroidery applique, wool applique projects. They have a little video that shows you what they're all about as well. It's a very nice store inside. And I believe there's a picture here of one of the ladies that I may have met. I think she might be in that middle picture, but I'm not really sure. Oh no, well, yeah, maybe. But anyways, the lady that I did talk to in the store that was helping me out was very, very nice. But let's get back to the website and let's get into their fabric and see what they have to offer. So pull this down, and they have it organized by the Shop Hop, Charm Packs, Children's Fabrics, Corey Yoder Fabric. I do believe that Corey Yoder's mother, I think, works in or may be a part owner. I don't know of this store as well. Corey Yoder does come from this area of Ohio. Fall fabric, flannel, homespun, other fabric, patriotic fabric, sewing fabric, spring, summer fabric, toweling, Valentine fabric, winter, Christmas fabric. Okay, well, let's go into fall fabric. Okay, so from 650, so I imagine that is for half a yard. Yeah. So it's $13, $12.99 for a full yard, $25.98 for 2 yards. So 1 yard. And yeah, now the one thing here that I am noticing in this list of fabrics, they don't really have a spot where you can see all the fabrics at once. And with the exception of Corey Yoder, these are not organized by designer. They're just organized more or less by theme. Let's go into Corey Yoder fabrics. I know a lot of people love that. It's not to my taste, although I can definitely appreciate the beauty of it. Now they're saying $12.99. I'm assuming that's a yard. Yes, it is. And that is not out of the way price. $12.99 American is about, well, $17 or so Canadian. So that's on the lower end of the scale for what we pay in Canada. And this, after all, is designer fabric too. So a good collection of that. It definitely appeals to, I think, those of you that like the vintage 1930s style. A lot of their fabrics were like that. Let's take a look at some pre-cuts. Yeah, it looks like they only have charm packs. They did have bundles up. They don't have anything here up for that. Okay. Let's go fall fabric. Yeah, we already looked at that. Homespun. Now, I've never used homespun, and I don't know if you would make a quilt out of homespun or not. Maybe you would. Other fabric. Okay, here they've got some other, looks like quilting fabric. And again, their prices are all about the same and all pretty good. They have wide back. Um, do they have a lot of wide back? I didn't see a category for wide back, and that's the only one I'm seeing so far. I guess you'd have to do a search through all of this. Can you put in, does it have a search engine? Yes, it does. So let's just see what happens if I put in wide back in the search engine. And I came up with 2. And neither one are to my liking, but that's interesting. That one's kind of interesting, but let's just see. It says from $9.99. So a yard of wide back's $20, which actually when I do the translation to Canadian dollars, that's about what we'd pay up here too for a meter. So yeah, so really not a lot there to choose from. Spring summer fabric. Yeah, I'm really not impressed by their interface for finding things. I find it a little cumbersome, but you can see what I mean. There's style that they have. They are not really into modern. It is more vintage, what I would call vintage, more of that, 1930-ish style for a lot of things. A few other things that are here that aren't so much, but most of it seems to be like that, and that's fine if that's your taste. Okay, so let's take a look. They do have wools, and you can see they have quite a selection of wools. I have no idea if this is a good price or not because I have never bought wool, but they do have quite a few wools. They do punch needle, rug hooking as well. So, they've got a lot of variety. They have classes. Take a look at class calendar. Let's see. July doesn't seem to have anything in it. I wonder if that's grayed out, if that means there's a class. Nope, doesn't do anything. Okay. It doesn't look like they're offering anything at all on their calendar. Okay, so don't know what that's all about. Looks like they have retreats, and they do have dates for their retreats as well, and they have quite a few of them. And I'm wondering if they have these. I'll bet you they have these at the Berlin Grand Hotel, which is where we stayed while we were there. And these are upcoming. They don't. Oh yeah, there it is. We stay at the Berlin Grand Hotel. Well, that's a nice setting, and very conveniently located to downtown Berlin, and to their shop as well. So that's good to know. Supplies, needles, notions, sulky 12 weight, and Valdi thread. So they don't really have a wonderful selection of threads, maybe more so in the kind of thread you would use if you're doing wool applique. Patterns, books patterns, let's see what they have. Okay, a lot of dolls. Few other, not a lot of patterns either. So really, this is a store you need to visit more so than I think shop online, because I think they have a better selection in their store. They do have some free downloads. Yeah, okay. That doesn't impress me much. Maybe it would if I did hand embroidery, but no. So, yeah. What I can say is I think their in-store shopping experience is better than their online shopping experience. But if you're going down to Berlin, Ohio, you might want to check this website out first before you actually take a look in their store. That's the Plaid Sheep Company in Berlin, Ohio. So that brings me to pretty much the end of the episode. What's coming up? Well, Walter and I are going off next week to a quilt show of sorts. It's actually at the Royal Ontario Museum in downtown Toronto. A wonderful museum. If you have, when next time, if you ever visit Toronto, that's a must go to, because it is a world class museum for sure. But they're having a special display of quilts from their archives, and they're going to tell the history of them and the stories of it. So we are planning to go downtown Toronto to check that out, and I'm hoping to be able to get some video and pictures of all of that, and I'll be sharing that with you the week after um, from it. So that's what's coming up. That's kind of exciting. And yeah, that's about it right now. So, anyways, I got to get back out to my Lucy and get my last quilt that's been hanging up there for a while quilted today. So, you know, my plan is to quilt it, make my binding, get it ready, and during tomorrow's Sew with Stephanie and Stephen, I'm going to be binding it and the other quilt, and they're out of my hair, and I can concentrate on some new projects. Okay, I hope you have a productive week, and I hope you have a good one. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now.